Hello, we're live. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And if you're here already, please say hi in the comment and let us know where you are watching from. And today is the last live show we're going to have on Rand Talks Design this year. So thank you so much for coming in before you leave for holidays. And this is a collaboration with the best design community out there, growthdesigners.co. And I'm very happy to be able to invite the community leader, Molly Norris Walker, to the show. Hi, Molly. Would you like
Hi.
to say hi and give us an intro?
Yeah, definitely. And love being and spending time with you, Ran, and getting to know Brent for the first time. So my name's Molly Norris Walker. I call myself a serial head of design at high growth startups. So I've had that role of helping startups grow their user base and their revenue at a few startups in a row. And now I actually am at a venture studio called All Turtles, where I am the head of design as well as a partner in that venture studio. And then, of course, how I stay connected to the growth design community is through our professional community of practice, growthdesigners.co, which has a Slack group, it has a job board, it has a newsletter that Brent was recently in, and I also wrote a book on growth design called Design Driven Growth.
Yeah, very nice. I would really love to talk to you, Molly, about your venture studio experience. So maybe next year, think about it.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and I am so excited to introduce the star of today, Brent Palmer from Mixpanel. Brent, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Rand. It's nice to see you and get to chat, talk shop with you in person. It's great.
Yeah, amazing. So I was the biggest Mixpanel fan actually for a while, and I'm really like a big fan of the visual design of the tool. And so I'm super excited to chat with you today. And as a fellow growth and data dashboard nerd, today's topic is also very exciting to me. And for today, for those who don't know already, you should. We're talking about on-ramp methods. So before we start, I want to talk about so what is on-ramp method? What is the definition for on-ramp? Brent, you want to start on this?
Ooh, tough ones first. Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm really glad you posed that question because it made me think really deeply about it. In the past, I've used those words interchangeably, just I think by mistake, perhaps. And maybe after a second consideration, I think about like a plane analogy or a plane metaphor. So onboarding literally means you checked your boarding pass, you found your seat, you stowed away your luggage, like you found you're on the plane. And whereas on ramp may be there, your seatbelt is fastened in your tray tables in its upright position. You're on the tarmac. You've got your noise canceling headphones on. You're kind of ready to take off. And so, onboarding, maybe you're kind of in the mechanic, you're in the tool, whereas like on-ramp may suggest things like an offline experience, a touch point with customer support, an implementation in our case with Mixpanel. So, on-ramping is a lot of other things besides just kind of that like activation layer or sign-up flow. That's my spicy take.
Yeah, that sounds really good. So it sounds like on-ramp is not just onboarding, but onboarding and more. To you, it's like multiple touch points. So it's not just within the tool, but it could be with customer success and like multi-channel onboarding experience.
I frame it that way as well. Like it's onboarding plus. So one way to think about it is, if you've got a platform as a service. There's potentially a professional services element that might be part of the on-ramp experience. Thinking about perhaps like the instance, getting your instance up and running as a platform, that might be an on-ramp, and an onboarding experience, for example, might be bringing a new user that's already in your organization into the platform.
Yeah,
That's
interesting.
a different way I might think about it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And Molly, I know when we're talking about this event, you were very particular on the word on-ramp, and how is that not onboarding? I'd love to hear what your thoughts on this.
I think it's harder. It's all hard, it's all, especially in the era of self-serve onboarding. And I think Brent is right to point out that on-ramp doesn't have to be self-serve, but I think on-ramp is like creating real users. I think onboarding is an umbrella term that can cover this multi-month experience, from first-time user experience to someone who's engaged and a core user. And I think that whole thing can be onboarding to a certain extent, but on-ramp is like, how do you get someone to commit to using the product? By actually, in our case, all the products we work on requires someone ultimately to like add their own data, to trust a platform to add their own data. And how do we build an on-ramp into that true activation, which is, I've written some data into your data platform. So I think it's tends to be grounded more around like real use, and how do we create that on-ramp to real use, rather than onboarding somebody, which feels like a much longer journey and multi-channel journey. And I think as well, onboarding can be very like heavy with like a lot of specific, like a lot of pieces. People even talk about continuous onboarding, and like that work is never done. But I think on-ramp is a specific term around getting, driving to like activation. And Brent, you've written about how things like demo data and templates impacted specific activation metrics, where onboarding, I think, can be larger acquisition, expansion, engagement. And I think that on-ramp is really more targeted to activation and moving that needle. But we don't have great terms in this field. So this is a great alignment.
No, we don't. Like we experienced a little bit of that earlier. And when I talk about onboarding, I think I was hinting at the famous product tours and all the tooltips that's preventing you from achieving your goals at the beginning of your experience. And then for you, Molly, onboarding is actually the journey and the beginning phase of your user journey, which is very interesting. We definitely need better terms. Maybe a growth-driven design volume 2. We can define some of these terms. And speaking of tours, I want to spend some time here because it's kind of the first thing you think about when you think about onboarding or on-ramp. It's like these product tours or empty states. So what are the limitations of these tours?
Ooh, Molly, you've got gems over there. I'm happy to go first, but I feel like you've got a lot to say about this.
Either or. Honestly, product tours, there's nothing wrong with it as a basic step. I'm not anti. I find they're harder to execute than you would think. And that's because like level 1 is have like a product tour, but quite quickly you have different user segments who are trying to get different jobs done. And so trying to create a relevant product tour for different segments is really difficult. And also using third-party technology, like if you want to do that cheaply and you want to use like something like an app queues or a user pilot, or that injects third-party JavaScript, that can actually be like kind of difficult to do. And I think that, again, there's nothing wrong with product tours, but I'd say like the maturity is more about having like going on a personalization journey and having, 3 different product tours or 3 different user segments where you're trying to help that person get their job done as quickly as possible, right? Like for our tools, that might be the difference between like a developer or a product manager or like a, business stakeholder. Like they would want a different product tour because they're interested in different parts of our products. Like our products aren't one size fits all. And there's lots of different paths in there. Yeah, so I think product tours, just the quality of them hasn't been that high, and so people have become really fatigued by them, and they've just become like less effective. And then even though they look easy to make and maintain, they tend to break a lot and not be that great for everybody. And the data that you need to drive and trigger them tends to be also hard to keep consistent, so you're sending the right journey to the right person. I've found it looks easy, it's actually harder to do in practice, and users don't really like them anyway.
It is very hard to do in real life, especially for SaaS, complex SaaS tools like all of our platforms. It's almost impossible to do. With proper, like very sophisticated personalization, can see it working for sure, but that seems like a big rock and like a lot of startup cost just to think through the personalization piece.
Yeah, just to have modals that somebody ignores and closes anyway. So
yeah.
Utility.
We've all seen that. Brent?
Yeah, I think, I don't have a particular strong opinion one way or the other. I mean, companies like Chameleon exist to do, and AppQs as well, like exist. They're clearly serving a need for the buy versus build scenario where you want to kind of orient someone in the product quickly. Just kind of that nice little handshake and welcome them in the product, and at least have an opinion about what they should care about, or point them in the places where the brand and the company feel like they need to, they want their users to get value. I think there's some inherent limitations with that. Like often they just kind of lack like context. It's hard to get context around the user, and they rarely help with what the user is really trying to do or accomplish in that moment. So I think about, a lot of what we do at Mixpanel can be asynchronous. So trying to keep up with the many, many, many different jobs to be done within the product. I think about the myriad of product tours that we had at Zendesk when I was working there, when you're a multi-product company, and how different that can be. It's like if you have a customer who has the suite of the products, A, B, C, and D, like that, the product tour should be more personalized and feel different if you have gone through A, B, C, and D. Or if you have a product tour, let's say you have those 4 products, and you skip C, just A, B, and D. There's no context there of that kind of skipping that product experience and that product learning. So it's really tough to kind of feel personal with those things. I think they've tried to replicate kind of that, I don't know, that kind of like that Apple Genius bar kind of experience and make it feel more human, but it's really hard to do that. I think they typically they just cost too much, do too little to buy them in-house. So buying is definitely my recommendation. I would definitely pick something up to just, again, like run experiments and see. Like I think what I think Intercoms has a nice product where you can actually add some of the customer data into that. So they're starting to feel more personalized, which I think is a really nice direction. Things like pulling in Clearbit as well, so you can de-anonymize some users as they kind of get into your product, just by saying hello and knowing what they care about and knowing who they are. That helps it feel a little more human, adds more human touch, makes it feel less robotic. Of course, you could really get that wrong, like if you're kind of masking a login, or you log in and it's like, hi Bob. Well, it's not Bob, it's Brent, and now you've kind of crushed your onboarding experience. But I think there's still some way to go, but I think at least, there's good data that says, at least a welcome modal or some kind of nice hand wave, helps increase retention. But as far as like actually getting to orienting you around the mechanic, it's, I haven't seen that be really productive. Usually, users rage click and they just kind of click through it, or dismiss it altogether. So, and then there's that Molly touched on a great part too, which is historically it's been a tough sell for me to put something like that on. So let's say we do try a third party, and like with any third party tools, there's a procurement process, and working with IT and engineering to put a snippet in the header and adding that kind of page weight is also kind of a tough, can be a complicated sell because we don't want to impact performance. So.
Yeah, I usually recommend like using a third-party tool to like A/B test and to figure out what a good product tour would look like before you code it. Like, I think ultimately you have to do you have to invest like custom engineering work to onboard folks into your product, whether that's a product tour or demo data or templates. Like there has to be some custom engineering usually, because that's the only way to get like it really reliably served to the right people. However, I like to use third-party tools as sort of like the alpha testing version because it's so cheap. Even though getting a snippet in can be work, it's so cheap to build and iterate product guides, checklists, tours, engagement flows with a third-party tool. Whether that's, you named some great ones, whether that's Intercom, User Pilot, Pendo, there are like literally probably 100 tools that do this. And it's so relatively cheap to experiment. Almost all of them have A/B testing like built in, but they'll maybe 75% of your audience, because if you have an ad blocker, those aren't going to really work consistently. So I think it's like, I think of those as like alpha versions, but I'd be interested. That's what I recommend people try out, like your flows and test your flows in a third-party tool, but like plan to build a case around some custom engineering work. But maybe these tools are getting better. Maybe other people have had success. I've just found them to be like kind of flaky in production for the long term.
Yeah, that seems to be kind of a knee jerk to just throwing in a product tour to kind of solve that problem, either like time to first value. I think you best start, and most teams do this. They start with kind of where are the customers finding their value moments, where are the drop offs, where's the friction there. It could mean something, it could mean an email and not a product tour. So yeah, understand why you need a product tour first is probably my first recommendation, first step.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great recommendation. And I know, Brent, you're kind of a domain expert on this. For those that are watching, if you haven't read Brent's newsletter for growthdesigners.co, you should. So please head over to growthdesigners.co to read his newsletter. And today's discussion is actually largely inspired by that newsletter. So I do want us to spend a little time doing a deep dive into the examples at Mixpanel that you shared in your newsletter. Brent, so I know all three of us here are data nerds, and we know Mixpanel, we know Amplitude, we know Influx Data, but not everyone that's watching this live or at home are familiar with these data-heavy companies. Do you mind just give us a quick TLDR on what is Mixpanel and how do you define your activation and first time to value?
Yeah. So who is Mixpanel? So if you build a product, a digital product, mobile app, web app, website, and you want to know how people are interacting with it, let's say you want to try new things or build new things, you have questions about what's working, what's not. So product analytics, we help kind of give you out of the box KPIs and metrics that we think you should care about, or build your own. And then from there, you can start working with your product team to make better decisions. So product team, it's kind of, air quotes these days. Traditionally, our product was meant for engineering, design, and product teams. We're seeing that really evolve, and the data literacy within those teams are starting to level up. And so, you can do more robust things within Mixpanel than maybe you did 5-6 years ago. But it's really built for those teams who want to go in, get answers without a data science background, without an analytics background. No SQL required, and that's what Mixpanel is about. Our activation, what's our North Star? Once a customer gets their data flowing through Mixpanel, they've analyzed something, they've built a report. So they've built something, a report in Mixpanel, and they've saved it. And then that means they're proud of their work, and they feel very confident that the work they've done is solid, and they have the answers that they need. The second kind of leading indicator there would be that they've shared it. So whether it's something they share out routinely or ad hoc, the fact that they're distributing this report means they're proud of it and it's trustworthy. So those are kind of the North Stars for us.
Yeah, and so what would you say is your biggest hurdle for new users to activate on Mixpanel?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. I mean, biggest hurdle, I've got to quantify it. Well, I think we'd have to kind of subdivide that between the type of customer that comes into Mixpanel, because I think they have different needs. A larger customer who would have more of a command control over their product data, someone like an admin at a larger company who would really have a data background and use this tool as a kind of a service to the rest of the product organization, would have a much different set of needs. So they're thinking about, I already have data products, so I'm coming from something else like, well, let's just say if they have a data team in-house and they're just overrun by the amount of requests to do reports. And so they need to empower the teams to self-serve. And so now they're looking at tools to do that. They already have a massive data lake, or they've got plenty of data analytics and data events and properties across maybe one product, maybe multitude of products. But now they need to kind of get that in a place where it's teed up for people with non-data backgrounds to self-serve. And so they have a different need. So they're about, getting the data in and making sure it's clean. So the pipeline is accurate. The data you put in, let's say 1,000 signups. We know that to be true from your, let's say a data warehouse like BigQuery or Snowflake. 1,000 people signed up last week. You go into Mixpanel and you want to build a report. How many people signed up this week? 1,000 in, 1,000 out. There's no kind of leakage, as we call it. So they're concerned about that. In performance, they want to make sure that it's snappy and that certain people can see certain data. So a little bit of governance there too. So that type of customer and buyer, or what we call champion or power user, has a set of needs. A startup just wants to get up and running. Startup wants to, sign up for Mixpanel within the first session, connect their data, add a JavaScript snippet, maybe an SDK, or connect to a segment, and have an auto OKR, just dashboard just already built. They want to save time. So they have a different set of needs there. They really want Mixpanel to do some work for them, make them more data literate, make them more data savvy, and produce gorgeous reports. So.
Yeah, is that where the demo dashboard come in? Were you trying to solve how do people evaluate tooling for all of these different personas or segments with the demo dashboard that you mentioned in your newsletter?
Yeah, I think so. I think the way we, our hypothesis there is create inspiration, kind of wow them with, I really am kind of proud of the team for putting a priority on visual design and how we, just the quality bar for data visualization. So I do think they're stunning. Prior to Mixpanel, I've been inspired by the team. Having designed a couple of analytics products in the past, or working with teams that do, we'd always kind of point to Mixpanel as, hey, these are gorgeous. Look at the best practices here. Take inspiration from what they're doing here. And I think now that I'm on the inside, we've seen that be kind of a driver for getting new customers activated. Mostly, and we've seen smaller companies, startups, and SMBs be inspired and compelled, I guess. It looks like a gallery. They want to deconstruct it, bang on it in safe space, and then they can hook up their real data and start making something like that. So, startups are hacky in that very sense. So they like reverse engineering things they see. So that's kind of our approach there.
Interesting. Is there anything you can share? The gorgeous dashboard, so we can see what you're talking about there.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. This is the point where I share my screen. All right. Let me do that. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to log in here. Actually, let's just go through a sign up flow. So there's two ways we think about these kind of demo dashboards. We have a big visual here, and we're like, do we go through a traditional sign up flow where we ask them to kind of stop, hook up their data to do real work? That trade-off between let's introduce a little bit of friction to get them to quote unquote real work, or do we throw them into the product and kind of explore and kind of look at the visuals, and that would speed up the time to get the real data into the product. We do that here. We do that with a lot of our advertising. We do it here on some of our solutions pages where we say explore the product. So we're really kind of giving the user a bunch of choice around where the entry points, I guess. So let's say if I'm here, I could just sign up for a Mixpanel demo, or if I'm here, I can go explore the product, which will throw me right into login. So I'm going to do my personal account. All right, which will kind of give us this. So what you'll see is you'll get thrown into kind of a blank screen here. And now what you can do is you can do a couple of things. We can go to explore dashboards, which will show you kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different dashboards. And these kind of act as like in the way I kind of think about it is like these feel like product tours, just kind of all laid out menu style. So it's going to serve as these are all guides on how either feature or how you can make use of the product and kind of get value from it. This kind of starts to teach you about core company KPIs. And then from there, you'll switch product, you'll switch your projects and then create a dashboard. And so I can, again, pull examples in here, or I can start to use templates. So the idea here is you see something like this. Let's say you can always go back to the original demo project. From here, we kind of give you some options like who are you? Again, like super limited, but we kind of, based on kind of our customer base, we ask, are you B2B SaaS, e-commerce, finance, etc. Explore that demo, and you're here. So we kind of, again, like this is kind of treated as an onboarding mechanism. We can put a lot of data into a much broader canvas here, like a demo dashboard. We can include text and video to help orient you around the product. And if you wanted to come in, you want to bang on that, you can start doing some deconstruction about what landing page is, what your events and properties are. You can go back. Yeah.
So your demo pages are actually like a bigger template. Like it's all this informational. So it's like that top informational panel, a welcome video, and a demo dashboard. So it feels like you actually have like a sort of a higher order container than just like your dashboard that's like demoing. Like it has like a welcome, has a video, and the demo dashboard. It feels like you have kind of a bigger container here, if I'm seeing this correctly or interpreting it correctly.
Yeah, and some of the things we tossed around as a team, or some of the language was around this. This sort of feels like a home tab. So if you are new user, you would kind of come into a homepage that has has an assortment of things. It may have like a welcome video. It may have some links to some help docs. It may have a couple of like shortcuts to get started quickly. And so we're kind of using Mixpanel and Mixpanel here. So yeah, in some ways, this is kind of like an onboarding homepage. In this sense, it's just kind of a basically demo project or demo data set.
Yeah, gorgeous. I do like your approach here. I think it's interesting. There's kind of like a mini on-ramp built into this single experience itself. Like you started with a less intrusive like method to show your like product tour without the annoying pop-up. So you land everybody into this greeting doc / dashboard, like even there is a video, and then it seems like on the sidebar the pinned content has like a natural ramp to it to start with. How do I do certain things to like how do you explore KPIs, reports and funnels, things like that.
Yeah, and there's this third kind of walkthrough that probably needs some love, but this is also an experiment that we're playing with.
Wow.
Welcome to Mixpanel. We can talk about users and what they are. So it's beyond just once you kind of land on the dashboard, we can display this. So what is an event? What is a profile?
Education.
It's a little bit, yeah, the little extra education layer. Maybe we fire that after you've visited the dashboard a couple of times. Use it as a nudge. Yeah, some mixed effects, I guess, mixed results.
Interesting. So how do people trigger the pop-up? It's like pure behavior based?
Yeah, it's behavior based. We also make a lot of this available to you in what would I call this? Maybe a resource dropdown. Getting started, what's new? I can jump back over the demo project, my developer documentation. We have a Slack community where which is also, again, one of those touch points that helps with on-ramp. And then hire an expert, which is our partnership community, which can also help you get unstuck for larger projects, more complex stuff.
Yeah. So how much engagement do you see that new users actually interact with all of these on-ramp dashboards?
Oh, that's a great question. We've got some dashboards set up. I could pull.
You don't have to show if
dashboards on dashboards.
Yeah, no, we're pretty meta like that. I probably can't share that, but I overall it's been an increase. I think that again, I think they serve. It's about the fit for purpose and what they're intended to do. We're just trying a hypothesis here. Product teams generally have some data literacy, but they need some help understanding kind of maybe the nuances and kind of one click down. So maybe what the difference between an event and the user is or a property is. And so, it's really trying to serve two things. It's not just about getting value of the tool, but there's an education layer to it, which can pose some extra challenges. I think, if you're a shopping app, you download the mobile app, you order some things online, and you enter your credit card information and you pay. Buying stuff is pretty ubiquitous. You know how to do it. For teams that are working with data, it's still pretty fuzzy. It's becoming clear over the years, but how to leverage data and how to utilize data if you don't have a data background is still kind of tricky. So we're trying to help with that as well.
Mm-hmm. So who do you say are these dashboards primarily helping? Are they you mentioned like all the personas, you mentioned like the data team evaluating tools, and there's also product team that would be the end user, or startup who is just looking to like get started quickly.
Yeah, we've, just the simplicity of it. We've seen greater deal of success with startups and smaller businesses who have a limited amount, less complex kind of KPIs. Like most templates, they can be sometimes that kind of slice, the horizontal slice of templates across all your segments and your customer base doesn't really fit everyone's need, and templates really don't kind of fit those complex use cases. And I would say that's sort of true. I would say that's more or less true here with Mixpanel. Great for what you need, company KPIs that are pretty standard, I guess. Your new users, monthlies, weeklies, key event, and then beyond that, the more complex analysis will probably require some deeper level of education with the tool and the data model that you have. So yeah, I think I think as you go up past, I guess that kind of, if you are the buyer, the champion, and the power user, you get inspiration, are compelled by these dashboards. You get a sense of like what's important to your success of your business. So you're able to kind of take this inspiration from the dashboard you see and then go turn it back around and make something from it. As you kind of move more up market, your larger customers have multiple roles. You're more specialized. They have more complex needs that the person who sees the dashboard may not be the person who's building the first report. So we see it kind of, I guess in kind of the correlation maps to that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I would say we've seen similar things with Amplitude as well. It's always harder to convince like more complex organization to commit to a tool. There's just a lot more to evaluate than just a quick look into your tool's capability.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like larger enterprise customers or larger customers, that want ponies, and with rainbows, and templates don't have that. So it's a little more robust, a little more complex discussion, for sure.
Yeah, Molly, do you have any comments here for the examples?
Yeah, I think for demo data, one of the big discussions is like, what type of data do you use? And I think that that was something that was actually like very, you make it look easy, like you have a certain types of demo data, but I think the demo can be a really big signal of like who this is for. So I think you had e-commerce use cases, finance use cases, like you actually had like 4 or 5 or 6 use cases. But when you're just starting, you usually pick like one demo project. And when we were first getting started with demo data, we were like, okay, well, what do we want to signal what kind of data our platform is for? Yeah, so you have SaaS, e-commerce, finance, media, social, and other. But this is pretty like mature to me, because usually when you're starting, you just are picking like one demo data set to like tell your story. And it was a balancing act between, okay, what data can we, because ours had to be streaming because we wanted to show like time series data, which is data with a timestamp. And we wanted it to be, no matter what time frame you saw, you would have a slice of data. So we ended up using like website performance. So you could see like the like logs and the streaming quality of the website. But then it was like, oh, now we look like a networking product. And that's not necessarily like where our users are, et cetera. So I think it's just, there was a lot of early discussions and debates and conflict over like what demo data, like what demo is, because it felt like a really big like piece of our identity to put out there. So you make that look easy, but I was thinking this is actually having 6 separate demos or 5 separate demos is actually like, this is like pretty mature to me. This is like, you all have been doing this for a while.
Thanks, Molly. To be completely transparent, there are 5 options here, but majority of the content remains the same. We've just we may have updated we may have updated a metric or a chart or maybe some text here and there, but we are pulling from the same well, I guess, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Do you let everyone choose a data set, or is there one that's the default?
Yeah, we've I hope Matt Hawthorne's not listening. I believe I believe they pull from us the same data set that we've kind of fenced off. And so you're able to go into a set of events here and look at them. We have this kind of buried here in something called lexicon. But all of our demo debts will have these set 25 events, and you can go in, you can look. I don't believe you can edit them. Yeah, there's no pencil here, so I don't believe you can edit them, but you can at least explore what an event or property is. So that could be helpful if you're coming back in later with your own data, and you can again like deconstruct it at the event level. So I think that's kind of neat. I just say that just to say, I've played around with demo data sets or demo dashboards that are just kind of read only. You don't have the full functionality across the product where you can actually go into the users and events to analyze that as well. It's usually just you just have a nice, pretty dashboard that you can just kind of hover over.
Yeah, I really like there are only 25 events. I think that makes a lot of things more manageable for new users.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how we landed at 25. There's usually more than
Magic
that.
number.
Magic numbers. Yeah.
Should we move on to the templates that you also cited in your newsletter? And I'd love to see what that experience is like.
Yeah, sure.
I can also show another demo data example from my time at Influx that's very short, but is like maybe the V1. So if Mixpanel, what Brent just showed, was like pretty developed, I just wanted to share, like, if it feels overwhelming, I wanted to share like a V1 of what this looks like. I no longer work at Influx Data. I graduated, became an alumni last year. But when we launched our first demo data set, I wanted to share a recording of our experience so it might feel more doable with other people. So this is using like a modal that's being served by User Pilot, and it says, welcome to Influx DB Cloud. Influx DB Cloud is like a platform as a service. Our target user is really like engineers, developers, and you can get started by either loading your data or trying demo data first. This is what I call my like maybe later journey. Like they're not ready to take the big first step. And then, these are all these not great modals, right? Showing you where to click in the product. And that is how you add demo data. There's like one button. And that's all we built for this is one button and one data set. We didn't build a user experience to get there. We just built a hacky user journey using modals and tooltips to get there. And so all we had engineering do is build a button that says add demo data, and then we shoestring the rest together. But it's real data. You can like query it here. And it also automatically creates like a dashboard as well for you to explore. So this is a very V1 version that might make this feel easier for folks.
It's actually a very sophisticated V1. I'd say I love the part where you're loading the data directly into their account. Mm-hmm. So I actually really like that experience. So I know for data tools, the biggest hurdle for setting it up is instrumentation. Like it takes a lot of people, dedicated people, a really long time to get data in the tool. And as a data tool and like data visualizations, like no matter how gorgeous they are, if there's no data, you can't really get any value from the tool at all. So I think adding the dummy data in is a brilliant idea. As long as you mark it, this is a test data, is not your real production data, I think.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, this is like a year old, so they've, proven that this has evergreen value, that it gets people started. But the reaction, because we are a data product for the data community and data engineers, it was very like we had a first version, which was like, here's a CSV, like upload this CSV. And then our next version was like, press a button and add a demo data set. That was like V2, but we didn't like build out a full user journey because it didn't feel, and for our users, there was a lot of pushback for something like this because like our founders, our C-suite, they're like, this is just toy data. Like our value is really in like real workloads. And I'm like, yeah, it is a toy. And that has value. So Mixpanel is a very like product-led growth, mature organization compared to like a dev tools company or like a smaller startup. And, I took these small incremental steps, like add a CSV, press a button to add data. And now I'm sure if someone tried to onboard into the product today, you would have a much more like fleshed out experience. So I think it's like, I think it's a lot of, it is a process. Like I just say, like, be patient with yourself. Like even doing something that we know in the growth community is always going to work. It is always going to work to have a real demo in your product. That will always improve your activation, always. Even though we know that, not all organizations are like ready to hear that. And the journey of making that become true is still can take like a year, 6 months to a year to get you to build something as simple as like that one button click. In the whole like selling it into a roadmap, like all that stuff, like that probably, even though it's like clicking a button, that was probably like 6 to 9 months of influencing, building, rolling out, all that. So I just wanted to say that as make people feel better about this challenge and how much time it takes.
Yeah. I just want to echo that. I think a lot of what you saw in that Mixpanel demo data set was a majority of that was done without engineering constraints. A lot of builds because we could use Mixpanel and Mixpanel. It kind of freed us up to do a lot more, I think. So that's maybe another angle. It's like if you're able to kind of get that, if you're able to use your tool on your tool, that makes sense, and get unblocked kind of away from engineering, huge win. Yeah.
Yeah, so Carlos in the comment had a really good point. Like what other product would benefit from dummy data implementation? My gut says every product. Like I've definitely seen like products that just like, for example, like a to-do app or like a habit tracking app. They're very B2C, a lot easier to understand, but it still benefits from like embed like a sample to-do item or a sample habit. So you immediately get what the value prop is for that app.
Yeah, shout out to Tango. I worked with them last year. They're a kind of help doc creation with a handful of clicks on screen. They just produce I guess any object that's created in the product. So if you're, again, like my experience is pretty limited to just B2B SaaS, but I think about them as a great way. If you're buying a productivity tool, it's usually when you're creating things. And so that thing that you're deconstructing and looking at is a great way to kind of see like, okay, here's a demo. I almost want to be clear real quick here. Dummy data. Yeah, they could be dummy data in doc, right? The text and images that are there. The brand and the company has put that out publicly for you to deconstruct and I guess kick the tires a bit in a safe, non-destructive way. So yeah, that's my example. And Tango does a great job of this because, again, they're meta. So it's like, here's a Tango on Tango. So you can kind of like break this down. You can use a Tango to deconstruct it and kind of see how it works. But the end result is the stock that you can also manipulate safely, which is pretty cool.
Have to check it out. Sounds like a really cool documentation tool. So, and segue to templates. A template is also a really great way of showing the user what you can do with your product, especially if you're like the learning curve is a little steep. Template can be a great way to serve as a stepping stone for user to do a bunch of things. instead of creating things from scratch. Brent, you want to walk us through some of the experiments you launched around templates?
Yeah, sure. And I will share that. So one of the assumptions that we had in Mixpanel was, of course, can you get past the implementation phase? Let's say if you are that customer, someone who's evaluating the product who can go quickly to your engineering and get the SDK, get the snippet installed in the header, whatever, connect a segment, come back and start building quickly. That was our hypothesis that we wanted to try. So I've actually got a dashboard set up. Let's say you have a new dashboard or a new user you're kind of taking here. Now, I just want to caveat, we've got a lot of work to do here. It's pretty MVP. We want everything to get better about this kind of new, kind of fresh, clean, like cold start experience here. But I can kind of at least walk you through where we've been and kind of where we're going. Again, like you can access the example dashboards inspiration, but we'll call this template. And right now we just kind of display a modal. And what we do is we talk about company KPIs. We make some assumptions here that you're a business and you care about what your customers do, and you want your business to be successful and your product to be successful. And so we right now we've really constricted this to be pretty opinionated. If you want to read more about why we are so opinionated, you can click here. But we have basically a sign up, something that is key, and then a value moment, and you add an event. Let's see, my small little app is pretty limited in its functionality. So I'm just going to pick email submitted. I'll hit apply, and it's going to spit out a dashboard, which again starts to bridge that gap between what we saw in the dummy data set and those kind of like bigger canvas home tab template dashboards. I'm sorry, dummy data dashboards with something that's more of like a template dashboard now. And all this can be deconstructed again, but now it's my real data. So yeah, that's sort of a quick and down and dirty kind of flow here of how a customer would utilize something like templates.
Yeah, would they be able to change what charts that's being shown here?
Yeah, that's a great question. Charts, let's see. So this is all removable. Let's see if I want to remove the text. Now that I've educated myself, I can do that.
Oh, look at that.
Look, hey, nice little product tour there. Thank you. Thank you, Chameleon.
Yeah,
And
great,
then
great
let's see,
timing.
I can add more. I want to add an insights report. I can do that or build my own. So it's really just this is almost like a doc now with data coming into it. So we can add text and media as well, and this becomes really rich. So yeah, once you've given us two, we call them like value moments, we can generate a dashboard like this. Again, super limited. We're making a lot of assumptions here. A long ways to go. We have a lot of different experiments we can try everywhere along this journey. But yeah, for the most part, how many clicks was that? 3 clicks and you get this, and then you can start rearranging this or deconstructing this or making it your own.
Yeah, love it. I definitely had an aha moment when you showed me like clicking that. I really like you ask the user to select the two events, like the value moment. Feel like that's some built-in education there, because for less sophisticated users, they're not going to know like what events that I should be interested in.
I think a couple of hypotheses here for us is what would happen if we really did get savvy about suggesting events, and what would it mean to actually get into custom events from here. I think primarily it's like we can start being more intelligent perhaps about what we suggest here, and then maybe it doesn't live in a modal. Maybe we can start expanding it, but like I said, long way to go.
Yeah, really, sorry, really great starting point. And I like that everybody can customize it. So now it's clear why you said in your article that this is a great jumping off point for users. So I can see like you can just leverage this to build a dashboard really quickly.
Yeah, something else we've seen is existing customers leverage this potentially more. Oddly enough, existing customers use this as a time saver. So they might add a couple of events from this list. Of course, they'd have many more. They'd click apply, and now that they have this, they would go back and maybe move this text box around. They have an engagement funnel. They also have line charts, so they can take these visualizations and start reworking them. That's been interesting. I think that suggests is there's an opportunity to reuse and repurpose a lot of this work. So we're taking some experimentations and thinking about that. So if I am maybe a startup who's got a few. I have a new pod or a new product team spun up. This would be an interesting way to onboard a new team or a new group of users within my organization. I have some suggested events, and now I can kind of quickly, I've curated this as the owner admin of Mixpanel. I've kind of curated this. We have reusable work, and then it's just basically a group of shortcuts to help product teams get up and running.
Yeah, definitely. The organizational templates is in the future.
Yeah, I don't know. NDA, we'll see.
I know. I've seen the future. Molly, do you have any more examples to show around templates also, or do you have any feedback, comments on the?
Yeah, I think I'm not surprised that already activated users, in your newsletter, you talk about templates have effect on long-term retention, and that existing users use templates as well. And I think that's because other digital sociologists have said that we're really a remix culture now with like memes and everything. We don't want to start from scratch if we ever did. And so just because you have like a highly competent user who's learned a lot about your product and could start from scratch, like they don't want to. Why would they? Stand on the shoulder of giants, which are your templates, which is much better anyway. And I've seen that too, like with all of this work around templatization for dashboards or notebooks or whatever. And I also think the point is proven out in the market, right? So we all freaked out when as designers, when Figma was bought for $20 billion, and they have some templates by Adobe, right? They have some templates, more in FigJam than Figma, and they've built a community to try to create more templates. But Canva is valued at $26 billion, and that's a product that assumes you're starting with a template all the time. Yeah. And I think that's an interesting fact that Canva is more valuable than Figma because through templates, they're able to have a larger total addressable market. They're able to help more people than Figma, which does not assume that you're going to be starting with a template. But what's the first thing you do when you're starting a new project in Figma? Is you probably go to use your design system, which is essentially a template that your company has built for you. Or if you don't have a design system, you go into the community and grab somebody's, UI kit for buttons. So you're always in reality going to be starting with some kind of template because who has time for that? Who has time for the other way? So in terms of data trends, I've actually seen this is something that we've talked about a lot. I'll kind of leave as a provocation that I actually see a wider trend in data, which is a movement away from dashboards, which are these stalwart, classic piece of infrastructure, to doing more visualization, user interface paradigm, to more notebooks, which are a lot more interactive, and even for non-technical users, allow you to kind of go behind the scenes and see what's powering that graphic. And I think that we're going to see new UI paradigms for data presentation. I think dashboards are on their way out. Notebooks are certainly already here for technical users. I think they'll be here for a wider community. And so I think that as we move into new UI paradigms for design exploration of data, that we're going to be, templates will only gather speed. And yeah, so that's sort of like a provocation too, is like, what about giving people templates for new paradigms like notebooks that are becoming more popular? And I think that the companies that can get people started with new UI trends, wider data trends, or wider trends in whatever sector or field you in, like demoing is a first step, then templates is a second step. But ultimately, like dashboards to me are sort of like dying, and are going to be replaced with something where you're going to have to go on that learning curve again.
Interesting. That's definitely a very spicy take on dashboard. I don't know. It's probably going to happen, and I like the parallel you drawn between the templates and Figma and Canva and Mixpanel templates. Brent, how do you feel about it?
I like that. I like the remix culture for sure. I need to, if you don't mind, Molly, I'd like to borrow that. I think
it's not mine. Some sociologist wrote about it. I should probably know their name if I'm quoting their ideas, but
I mean, users are generally, there's an inertia is a thing. Users are pretty lazy. I think one of the goals with Mixpanel is we want our customers to trust the data, right? We want this tool to be trustworthy. And I think one of the ways we can assist with that is like, hey, if you've got people who have already, if there's an evergreen set of events and properties or an evergreen report that's already built, and that's getting a lot of use, like they've done a lot of that hard work for you, reuse that, repurpose that. So I think that's going to be a really, really powerful way of exploring data for tools that kind of sit on top of whatever kind of data stack or data layer you have. Like, I think analysis is, again, I think that's a great take on notebooks. I'm not quite sure what it's going to be called in the future, but I think I get the concept. It's really more than just a bunch of data visualization squeezed on a particular screen. I think that format's probably going to get blown out pretty soon if it isn't already. I know there are some
conversational, like a lot of startups are in like conversationally, like asking questions to data. And I think that, yeah. My aha moment from I know we're a little over time, but my aha moment from you, Brent, was like, you said demo data and then templates. And it's always been so messy in my work where it's like, we're doing both of these things. But I think that you had a really clear view that it's like linear. It's like demo, and then you give them a template. And I think that you told that story really well. And in my own work, I hadn't really like lined those up as well. So I think that was a real gift that you gave us in your piece.
Thank you, Molly. Well, shout out to the growth team at Mixpanel, Caitlin, Laura, Nate, Matthew, Jess, Alex Donaldson, who wasn't with us, but they all put together a great onboarding experience for our new users. Claps. Golf claps.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming up on time, and thank you so much, Brent and Molly, for joining us. And if you're watching, feel free to comment on the video if you have a question, because we are out of time. So we won't be able to do a live Q&A, but if you comment, I'll make sure I will send the question to Brent and Molly async, and we will get your question answered. And before I let both of you go, I would like to end our sound conversation with a piece of advice that you can give people who are watching. How can they start thinking about the on-ramp experience for their own product? And I'll give you both a minute to think about it and introduce a quick plug. So if you are enjoying watching this video, feel free to like and subscribe to my channel. And I'm excited for next year. And it seems like Brent is ready to go.
Sure, I'll take it away. I think I'm to hammer everything's a nail, but as a designer, I want to talk to people. So, and when you really understand, just either anecdotally or just in conversations, what's important to your customers and users, then you can start like crafting and onboarding around them, what they care about. So nothing beats good old fashioned conversation. So start there. And yeah, I love being here. Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, find me at Brent Palmer. That's my Twitter handle. And then connect with me at Mixpanel if you like, please. Brent.palmer@mixpanel.com. Thanks.
Oh, and you're hiring as well.
Yeah, Brent is hiring. Brent is hiring.
That's right. We've got, I'm looking for a growth designer. So if you have a penchant for dashboards and love to geek out on data as well, please. Notebooks or whatever kind of new medium format, reinvent. Come join our team and help reinvent the new format. We'd love to have you on this pretty rad team here. And yeah, we're gonna be looking for some designers. So please contact me.
My piece of advice is unblock your ability to do one test, whether that's qualitative or whether that's quantitative. Having one test, whether it's upload a CSV or something that is not real, it doesn't matter. Unblock your ability to run one test, design that test, tell the story of that test, build on what works, and get rid of what doesn't, and repeat.
Love that. Subtraction. Exercise and subtraction.
Yeah, find your MVP and just take action. Love it. Well, thank you so much again, Brent and Molly. And I know I've learned a lot, and I really appreciate you sharing a screen live demo on a live show is hard. So thank you so much for doing that. And I can't wait to talk to you soon on the growth designers community. And I'll see everybody next year.
Thank you, Ran. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.